Well, hi everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about the exercises that I do in the off season and between hikes to stay in condition for hiking. I want to emphasize this is my program. This is what I do. If you're going to start an exercise program for the first time, especially if you're an older guy like me, I mean, I'll be 64 in a couple weeks. Please have your doctor check you out and give you the okay first, or maybe set whatever limitations that he or she thinks are appropriate for you. Okay, so we can say that hiking is not a competition. I think I said that in an earlier video. But the question comes up, is it still athletic? And as a counterexample or another example of something that is athletic but not competitive is, think about ballet. You know, they get out on stage, they do all these wonderful things. I'm not a ballet fan. I've never been to a ballet, but I know what it is. But I do know that the ballet dancers are extremely well-conditioned athletes. They have to be conditioned for cardio. They have to be strong. They are susceptible to injury just like any other athlete. So the point is, just because score isn't being kept doesn't mean that an endeavor is not athletic. And so it is with hiking. I mean, nobody's keeping score. You may be tracking your miles and stuff like that. I jokingly have, personal records for how many miles on a trip and stuff like that, but it's nothing serious. But it is athletic. In our advantage is because we're not performing for somebody the way a ballet dancer is, or a football player or a basketball player is performing. We're able to do what it takes to minimize opportunities for injury, for example. So, in this series, I'm going to talk about preparing my body, and that starts with cardiovascular conditioning, and that's what this particular video is going to be more about. There's also things like Pilates and yoga. I don't happen to do them right now, but I think they would be great ideas because they kind of emphasize flexibility sorts of things. My daughter Katrina is a Pilates instructor, and I would be a client of hers if she didn't live 1,800 miles away from me, because I think this sort of thing is important. So I'm going to be looking for local opportunities for this kind of workout. Then there's resistance training. Resistance training is basically lifting weights, and it becomes especially important as we age because we could lose muscle mass if we don't do resistance training. So I've actually added some resistance training to my workout regimen. I'm not going to talk about it in this series because I haven't developed it very well yet, but it's important. And I say it's as we age. It's not because we're aging, but it's because as time goes by, life hits us and we do a lot less and less of the, that sort of thing, and we lose muscle mass with time more than with age. But to minimize that, resistance training is important. Another thing is your feet carry the biggest burden of any hike. I mean, if you, like me, you go on a 600-mile hike, well, your feet brought you the whole way. And they really need to be prepared for such a thing. And then finally, there's the matter of what I call shakedown hikes or practice hikes. So I know in the previous video I said I'd talk about exercise in this video, and then diet in the next. I'm actually splitting this video into two. I'm going to be talking about cardiovascular preparation in this video, and then I'm going to be talking about getting the feet ready and the shakedown hikes in the next video. And then of course there's also preparing your mind, and that will also be covered in the next video. Okay, so here's the equipment I have. I went out and got a Life Fitness 95XI elliptical trainer. This is actually a very expensive piece of equipment if bought new. During the pandemic, a lot of fitness centers shut down, and there was a young businessman who took advantage of that, and he bought out all the equipment that was being sold off at a cheap price, and he sold them to people like me, had to be a small profit because, well, this is a $5,000, when new, and $2,000 or $3,000 when refurbished. I paid nowhere near that. I did not get into four figures to buy this piece of equipment. I say it's a mid-level commercial model because It doesn't have like a ramp like some fitness trainers are called cross ramps. They can actually, increase the angle at which you're pedaling. This doesn't have this. All it has is different resistance levels to change the feel of the pedaling. I also can only go up to a certain speed pedaling before it starts to shake. I mean, it does weigh 282 pounds. I had to get help getting it into my basement. But it's better than any home version you'll get. It can take a little more beating than any home version, and it's actually better than some that I have seen in commercial establishments on the lower end. So this is like a mid-level thing. So my cardiovascular workouts are based on this piece of equipment. So I'll be speaking of them, in terms of that machinery. So when we do workouts, when I was a college runner and a high school runner, we went by the philosophy of no pain, no gain. And interestingly, just by coincidence, today, for the first time, I happened to see a quote from Benjamin Franklin, which was no gains without pains. So I think when we say no pain, no gain, we're actually kind of paraphrasing Benjamin Franklin. And the whole idea there was if your workouts weren't stressing you, you weren't going to benefit from them. And, is that really true? Maybe for competition that was necessary. But I asked the physical education director at college that I worked at, what he thought of no pain, no gain. And he came up with, he said, now, I think of it as no intensity, no gain. That's another way of looking at it. But even then, there are times where I'm working out and I feel I'm getting benefit, but I really don't necessarily feel that intensity. I want to base my workouts on what's going on under the hood, as I say. And what's going on, physiologically when you're doing exercise and everything, that's way beyond what I can go through coherently. However, there is a good YouTube resource. If you look up Sten Ekberg, his YouTube channel, he explains a lot of this. He goes over high intensity interval training, all the different, cortisol levels, growth hormones, all that sort of thing. And I will put a link to one of his particular videos, but it will also kind of guide you towards his YouTube channel. He is an ex-decathlete who was in the Olympics. He's maybe 8 years younger than me, I think, 6 to 8 years younger than me. So, it was around my time, but a little bit later. And he actually was, I think, 9th in the world, which, in the Olympics, which is actually tremendous. We think of, oh, you didn't get a medal, you didn't succeed. Well, yeah, you succeeded if you made it into anywhere near the Olympics to begin with. So this guy's a holistic doctor now, and he has fantastic videos on all sorts of health-related topics. So on the elliptical trainer, I have 4 workout types. The elliptical trainer has a whole bunch of different programs in it. It has one set of programs called HIIT programs where it varies the resistance level in particular ways. That helps me get through them without losing my mind out of boredom. The variation in the HIIT programs actually keeps my brain interested while I'm pedaling. I am actually monitoring my heart rate, and I'm trying to achieve a heart rate around 111 to 115. That's based on like a rule of thumb about 215 minus your age is what your heart rate target would be if you're doing aerobic training. And this is kind of hard to explain, but I have found that there's a subjective feel I have where as long as I go up right against to the point where if I go any faster, I'm going to be working hard and feel like I'm breaking through some kind of barrier, maybe into anaerobic. I don't know. It's a subjective feel that I got used to. And I find that just checking my pulse with the machine, the elliptical trainer has a heart rate monitor built into the handles. And I can just grab them every 5 minutes. And I find that by maintaining this subjective feel of just being kind of, I'm not dogging it, but I'm not quite pushing it, I actually maintained between 109 and 115 consistently for an hour doing that. So I do that like every other workout, and I do them for an hour, and that just kind of makes sure that I'm doing the aerobic cardiovascular. Another workout I do is called HIIT, high intensity interval training, and this is the tough one. I have a heart rate target of 157 or higher. I'm usually actually trying for about 160. And you don't just jump on and run, pedal as hard as you can to get up there. You actually take a rest period, and then you do a fast period, and then a rest period, and a fast period. And the idea is your heart rate gets accustomed to going up and down and up and down. And each rest period, it doesn't quite get down to as far as low as it was on the previous rest period. And eventually you get up to the point where you hit your target heart rate, and then you're done. Because of my elliptical trainer being a little wobbly if I pedal too hard on it, and the fact that I can't put the resistance up too high because my joints start to hurt, I have to kind of work around those limitations. So I actually based my workout on something that was taught to me in high school by Jim Collins, my cross-country coach, where I vary the speed in a repeatable manner. And I have 3 speeds. There's the rest speed, which is just kind of recovering. I have what I call pace, which is 3/4 pace. It's kind of like what I might go for if I were feeling like I were racing something middle distance, not real long distance, kind of long distance, excuse me, not a sprint. And then there's my sprint speed. So I actually also, to keep my brain active during this activity, is I go through a complex 5-minute set. It starts out with 60 seconds of rest pace, 45 seconds at pace, 30 seconds of rest, 45 seconds of sprint, 30 seconds of rest, and then 45 seconds of the pace, and then 45 seconds of sprinting again. And at the end of that 5-minute set, about 20 seconds later, I'll find that that's where my heart rate peaks, and then I can judge, okay, at the end of that set I've got up to whatever, and I'll see that at the end of each set, while my heart rate goes down during the rest periods, at the end of each set it climbs up until I can get to over 157 and preferably over 160. And then and that usually takes 3 or 4 sets. And like I said, it's 20 seconds into the next set. Once I hit that and I notice that, okay, my heart rate is starting to go back down now, and it peaked out at like 162, for example, then I decrease the resistance on the machine all the way down to its lowest level, and then I pedal as slowly as I can. You have to do a certain speed just to keep the machine turned on. And I measure my heart rate 2 minutes later. And I'm looking to see a recovery of my heart rate dropping back down between 45 and 55 beats per minute. And lately, I've been hitting the lower end of that. It's usually going down 45, 46 beats per minute. But at least that's telling me that, yeah, I'm on the right track and I'm recovering. Another workout I do, I just call it the assessment. I do it once a week. It's again a heart rate goal of 111, and I just measure it on a flat, in other words, consistent resistance, and I just see how far I can get. And I'll talk about that on the next slide, what I mean by how far I can get. And that just gives me a measure from week to week at, if I'm improving my cardiovascular condition. And then finally, as a rest day, I have a very low intensity. It's something I do once a week. I'm aiming for a heart rate of 102, and I have certain rules that says, if I get a little lax and it goes up to 105, then I have to slow down enough for it to go to 100 before I, before I can try getting back to that 102 level. So these are just ways that I use constant feedback to kind of keep me from going hog wild and, getting over into the types of workouts that are going to increase cortisol in my system or increase the chance that I'm going to get a repetitive motion injury or something like that. So I use distance on the elliptical trainer. Well, you're not going anywhere. Well, the elliptical trainer gives you a number and claims that's how many miles you've gone, but it doesn't correspond to any reality. It's certainly not how many miles the equivalent miles running, or else I'm setting world records every day, and that's obviously not happening. And it's not the same as biking, because I would be one of the world's slowest bicyclists if that's the case. It's just an arbitrary number. I call them elliptical miles. It's arbitrary when you're trying to compare it to real life, but comparing one workout to the next, if you go farther according to the elliptical trainer, then you have done more strides. I mean, it's a proxy for the number of strides you've taken in a certain amount of time. So my thinking is that then if I do more strides while keeping my heart rate at the same, I'm kind of getting better conditioned. And that's exactly the kind of conditioning I want for out on the trail. I want to be able to go for 8 hours a day. I can't work out for 8 hours a day when I'm not on the trail. I mean, it's just not possible. I have a life to live. So that's kind of how I judge what I'm doing. Now, I do keep a chart, and here's an example of the chart of my progress, and you'll see that it's kind of hard to tell. These are all the different, in this case, these are the HIIT programs, and you can see that you go through them. There's a thing they call the HIIT program, and there's things called foothills and Cascades and Kilimanjaro and around the world. These are just different patterns of resistance changes that occur during the hour that I'm pedaling on this. And there's a lot of variability in there, but you can see I was generally going up. The numbers across the bottom are essentially weeks, week-long periods, maybe a little bit longer. And then all of a sudden there was a drop-off at the end, and I had gotten sick recently. I caught a cold. I'm still kind of getting over it. I caught a cold from Darlene. I did go get a COVID test, and it was negative, thank you. And and you can see how much that can affect your performance in a measurable way. The last one on there was actually this morning, and it was the Foothills program. That's the light blue line, and you can see I started to recover a little. So hopefully this sudden dip between weeks 13 and 14 will be something that I'll recover from. But by measuring, I can tell things about my health. I can tell if things are going wrong. If there's a ready explanation, such as, "Oh, I've been sick," then I know it's, I know that's something I should recover from. But if I suddenly had a drop off in performance, maybe it's telling me I'm not getting enough sleep. Maybe it's telling me there's something wrong with my diet. So that's why I track this. I am kind of a metrics maniac, but I have calmed way down. I used to do the HIIT program as hard as I could, and I was keeping my heart rate around 150, which is getting close to that target that I have when I'm doing high intensity interval trainings, and I would keep that going for an hour. And again, go to Sten Ekberg's channel if you want to learn about exercise and diet topics. He's very good with that. And I learned from him that, I wasn't doing the best I could for myself by doing that kind of workout. So that's my cardiovascular workout. In the next video, I'll talk about training hikes that you may consider doing before you go on, say, a longer, more difficult hike. Okay, see you next time.